Did I do it? Oh, I did it.
Is everybody good?
Yep.
Great. Is the judge ready?
Let's see. Maybe paper will work out. Might actually. Yeah, that's probably better. I don't know. We'll see. Just do this. Oh, these rooms.
Yeah.
All right.
I unplugged it.
Let's do this.
All right. You brothers, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Contention one is sustainable agriculture, Cuban agriculture, sustainability is failing, foreign investment is key, that's King and 12, Cuba needs foreign investment to take facilities and take advantage of cogeneration, biofuel potential, take control, so this is limit the research and joint investment on oil, real trend toward decreasing the environmental sustainability, Cuba's green investments, wells bring in surely, but depends on unstable countries, crude is sharper than the need for capital seems to be sharper considered development, sustainability, and the plan provides foreign capital to Cuba allows model be export globally as goal in Q12, Cuba is involved in novel techniques to help services growing demand in the U.S., Cuba is in favor of increasing agriculture trade for logistics, simplicity, and cost savings in countries, equal trade relations, lower transportation costs, future reforms open the door to direct investment, no transaction with the Cubans producing foreign buyers for reforms, means opportunities to numerous investment in cooperative facility, return on the investment policy retained by the firms, the Cuban organoponics cooperative using rate, raised beds on land that would be otherwise incapable of supporting production. The organoponics system maintains the potential leapfrog world potential for future growth in the industry's huge Cuban organoponics system is great potential, and the access to the U.S. market is critical to sustainability and emulation that's costing for the successful expanding liabilities, Cuban direction may depend on the geographically close high income foreign markets and economic production practices compatible with the U.S. certification and the current U.S. market production costs are high. Opening the U.S. market would enable Cuba to exploit compared to the ban tapping the U.S. market to create the price incentive for the Cuban producers to meet the standards of other countries. Cuba expanded production the geared to the specialty export markets oriented production will remain necessity driven away to produce food and the continued reliance on industrial mechanized ag results in catastrophic warming and biodiversity loss that's come as a 10. The worst global GDP emitter is food incorporated. The industrial farming that accounts for 35% of the GDP emission in the industrial agriculture, although the main driver towards global deforestation, while destruction generate additional 20% GHG, industrial farmers emit 25% carbon dioxide, 40% the methane, and 96% much nitrous oxide 300 times more times damage than carbon dioxide. Now it's scientists underestimate non-CO2 GHGs and a move towards organic ag mitigates future emissions, transforming at scale of and 10. Organic agriculture system reduces GHG emissions and enhances carbon sequestration and carbon contribution to the organic food management system, the care for management of nutrients and reduction of NO2 emissions. Organic standards for creating specific line standards the organization, the mineral fertilizer estimated to reduce agriculture emissions by 20%. These are supplemented by the emission compensation potential to reduce agriculture 72%. Current agriculture emissions scaling up organic agriculture promote climate-friendly farming practices worldwide and cause extinction. 4 degree projections trigger a launcher list of extinction scenarios as Robert 13. 2 degrees Celsius for when scientists predict catastrophic universal impact of half projection show decrease in the intensity and frequency of high temperature the extremes and extreme heat waves of severe impacts causing heat related to the first fires, however loss of the impacts potentially exceed the adaptive capacities meant inside the natural system more than 4 degrees will also lead to increase of about 150% of the acidity of the ocean, bleaching vents, ocean acidification, sea level rise, and large fraction of the coral reefs, the region close to the equator with the sea higher seas, it exacerbates existing water security, the extreme weather events of ecosystem, effect the loss of biodiversity, ecosystem services, new research indicates the risk of crop yield reduction in the world warms. This will have large scale displacement population, adverse consequences of human security, the economic trade system, self-reinforcing feedback loops will be running to make climate change unstoppable, the universal centuries come and warming most comprehensive analysis today prove that's green 13. Scientific consensus happening despite success. There's a wide participant in scientists disagree. 60% of the U.S. public believes there's a disagreement among scientists. Scientific overwhelmingly agree that the Earth is warming due to human activity. The number of papers rejecting HEW is minuscule compared to the published research, and the overwhelming percentage endorses the scientific consensus on HEW. And contentious issue is the Cuban transition. Cuba's current reforms are slow, contradictory, and insufficient plan is key that shifted around all 1015. The Cuban government not only the legalization of income categories private component the Obama side with the claim to decades fails to how fast the reforms go will determine their impact. These reported reforms now result in significant improvement. Large, more difficult reforms need to be implemented. The government decision to restrict the sale of important goods shows the contradicting supports are unwilling to monopoly the role of these users on the outside clinging to a policy within the last century. The U.S. could be helping the process instead of trying to stop it. The subemployed and instructed occupation or unskilled employees that fired parental university graduate can't is a self-employed tax is quite a burden. The government sends contradictory signals as Ray shut down the self-employed Cubans. The reforms must be deepened and accelerate the special relations with Venezuela. The filter with political change, the change economic priorities, the most welcome surprise is normalization of the U.S.-Cuba relations. The total repeal of the embargo is key. That CSG in 13 helms. Britain codifies U.S. embargo taking the conditions suspension, the recognition, transition, governing anxiety for thoughts of involvement, confrontation, and repression, which has been followed by the U.S. domestic practical taking the exemplified by imprisonment growth that Obama relaxed family travel and revenge restricting the policymakers' refusal to improve relational response, revealing health burden with emboldened reformers, democratic advocates, power entrepreneurs, revealing extraordinary relations with the U.S. greater leverage and persuading the international community. This will transfer the help of the Cuban government and staff and efforts to isolate critics will lead to isolation of the national community and more moderate approaches that can barely fail to stabilize Cuba. That's coding at 10. The U.S. requires policy to increase soft power and hold the Cuban government to its representative government the limited easing sanctions of the government of Cuba would adjust the gradual change to maintain control, moving the pressure that marked reforms that African government of the U.S. should develop a bilateral trade agreement with the goal of achieve normal trade relations with the U.S. being somewhat with the American president of the U.S. with an opportunity to assist in market reforms. The Cuban economy so much and the government realized they don't have the capability to give a loss out of most of the world is clearly not worth it. And the impact is the Cuban health care sector. It depends on a democratic market-based transition that's almond and 5. Transition may open rules, NGOs, the influence NGOs, data limited Cuba, NGOs, certain immunization, the safety, the by the nature of the regime, taking the instrumental determining the NGO involvement, private sector participation in healthcare, the private sector may limit the outcomes of functions that have the political system that merge the little political change occurs to the U.S. participation, will cause increased U.S. trade with Cuba, the immediate deterioration in the healthcare sector, the media, medical infrastructure deteriorate, with more deterioration in the technology, the fewer basis of why the Cuba is highly trained scientific, medical talent, and infrastructure important, for academics, and then expend foreign professional labor, capital partnerships, and stimulating the future new capital in Cuba to participate in foreign firms, love the expansion and output in the international marketplace, such opportunities, and upon the administration that agreed to open his disposition towards the rest of the world, and add this model stops disease spread worldwide. That's Cuba on 6. The combination of community participation, parliamentary, and the U.S. also have a public health sector here sectors and Cuban brain campaign successful. Cuba currently for the program is in place as a production 50 countries collaborative plan is developed improved healthcare service based in efficient that is overhauling the world's disease and the infectious disease principles are straightforward when the vaccine becomes available to the entire adverse population immunized the vaccine is not available to susceptible population screen treated the transmission pathways to rapid the mobilized local community joint factor these activities elimination of all infectious conditions the capital from the Cuba we reproduce the health of the world's population we transform and global pandemics are coming in direct U.S. intervention fails that's however in sick globalization turns the world of enormous tradition infectious diseases bacteria produces less than 30 minutes of work under the best way to reduce zoonotic diseases establishing an early warning system for these diseases will require a human level intervention the places that don't want them the most likely source of the next pandemic the countries that won't let Western agencies in the world still already for the pandemic Southeast Asia Sub-Saharan Africa and the zoonotic diseases specifically lead to extinction that's cancer of all in 12 recent decades to provide unequivocal evidence of both of the pathogens cause extinction and stable function so responsible extinction of numerous species to be that the disease without cause extinction to predicate the notion that pathogen required the host and some proportion of the population naturally resistant and not apply to microbes that are directly acquired from the arriving in the general no need for host such and the fungal pathogens it could possibly kill off every micro species without harm and return to the natural habitat and upon killing its last host and if it does the plan the United States federal government should allow normal trade relations with the Republic of Cuba. Contention 3 is no war. First, it won't happen. Global institutions, interdependence, the internet, physical constraints, and nuclear deterrence. That's Robin 12. Today's global policy tempered with regional alliance to form parts of these moderate international disputes provide foreign negotiations, settlements, war differences with distance, great power to the interest of main cooperation, rather than conflict, maritime nation desire, open sea and trade to the challenge of bringing parts together to information flows freely. Authoritarian leaders that find it hard to cultivate support for total war swing. Arab swing demonstrate the opposition begun to reshape political order argue that China is not more liberal, physically trade more marginalized, defensive, the more the reason why the powers find mutually beneficial work to add nuclear weapons to formal determine render war from less likely guaranteed catastrophic results. And second, nuclear taboo France use, that's Perkovich. 9. The taboo against nuclear weapons becomes so strong the state and opposes real ability as to pure Russia will not run the risk. China's no interest China without unlikely use nuclear weapons this time. It's targeted China's goal to integrate Taiwan and not to kill them. Youth, there's no obligation for Chinese independence. The third won't cause extinction. That's rollback in 10. Although extinct, the species was not ruled out.
Okay. Alright. Transition first. How's Cuban agriculture right now? I mean, that's Cuban healthcare.
How is Cuban healthcare right now? So they lack the, they have the model that would be able to expand into these places, but they don't have the capital or the I guess the funds to go and do that.
Your card indicates that NGOs bring these funds. Am I correct?
Yeah, there are a lot of NGOs involved, right?
So why hasn't NGOs from 180 other countries in the world revitalized the Cuban model?
Right. It's a question of who's willing to invest. Nobody's investing right now.
Why?
Our card doesn't take a stance on that. It just simply indicates that they have the medical infrastructure and they have the correct way to go about it. They just don't have the funds.
Okay. Transition. You say that Cuba needs significant improvements. What do these constitute?
transition. So our Morales evidence indicates that things like the raids on self-employed Cubans, that
Self-employed
taxes
Taxes.
are quite a burden, as well as it indicates a couple of other things on how the U.S. is trying to like stop the reforms that are going on now with
Okay.
the embargo.
Yes.
So oh yeah, and then university graduates are deterred from employment.
University graduates are deployed. All of
occupations
those are
are
necessary
unskilled.
for a good Cuban society and effective transition. Am I correct?
That's the Morales evidence
Okay.
indicates that those would be worthwhile
What is
reforms.
great power war?
What is great power?
What does it
rule?
constitute?
I guess our evidence. Are you referring to like the Rob evidence?
I'm referring to your no war contention. Anything. In there.
Yeah, the Rob evidence indicates that like a lot of powers. I don't think we take a stance on what constitutes a great power, but it indicates that other like large players in the international sphere with a lot of military power won't go to war with
Okay.
each other because they see the cost is outweighing the benefits.
Warming. The industrial agriculture is unsustainable around. Am I correct? Around the world.
What?
Industrial agriculture is unsustainable around the world right now. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess industrial. Yeah, you would say yeah.
Yes.
It is. For
If it is unsustainable and we need organic agriculture, why hasn't other countries adopted Cuba's model?
Because of kind of the short-term views of different companies around the world, they don't see
Short-term views.
Yeah, they don't see the ecological unsustainability
Okay.
of their
What
system.
the hell does lifting the embargo do about those short-term views of companies?
Right, so then it changes the calculus of them because their calculus is like through this cost-benefit analysis, and our cost evidence indicates that opening the U.S. market to Cuban exports would be able to make the system cost competitive and allow businesses to switch.
That doesn't really make sense because other countries trade with Cuba right now. But how do you resolve like emissions from like China around the world?
So first is the argument, like the switching argument, that would be more cost competitive. If we win that argument, that kind of takes it away. But second is the carbon sequestration argument that indicates that we don't even have
Do you
to
have
make
a
them
card
switch.
saying that organic agriculture is cost competitive?
Yeah, it's the cost evidence.
Cost of-
Hey, there's a Chris. Do you mind if I use your stand?
Oh, no, not at all.
It's gonna be 4 off. In case in the order of.
I like how this is the cost evidence.
Yeah, right.
Did you save it to the Dropbox?
Yeah, I did.
Alright.
Case in the order of transition, agriculture, and the no war.
Transition ag, no war.
Yeah.
Right here, did you grab it?
Oh,
Sketchily smooth. Okay.
First off is politics. Immigration will pass right now. Bush in 1219 and White Belt from the House. It shows that immigration reform 90-day age to vote was a great opportunity. Every member of the House of Leadership expecting a commitment to move forward a number of rank and file Republicans in favor. Go to death for the stand to be the blockbuster year. GS Bolton step back commitment being and showing the resolute dedication to get reform done. The announced time political will to get reform done longer. We delay the agricultural economy down. Any change in the embargo drains massive amount of political capital. Cardenas 12. The Cuban American bloc government stall mandates of Ruben had argument of a cruise to fix impediment. The honorable dictatorship to take significant reform that pressure impulse America to reciprocate. Taking up political capital is key or Orlando Sentinel. 11 won a battle over immigration because that's just a popular window, but it'll take plenty of political capital. One leader to the public committee. Having there are plenty of selling putting opportunities to put the talent. The Republican blog Republican won't have a chance to Obama making full use of his bully pulpit. Now, CIR is critical to economic growth. This is on climate 13. The quarter of use tech and engineering business charge for affordable retirement pay people and economic challenges. The few economic problems will be getting improved by immigration, health, employment. So just like conservative slow down immigrant entrepreneurship, should be up to the side of engineering. For students, the most obvious solution now. Economic decline. decline leads to extinction. Harrison roads to 99 potential grid, a conflict growing the Volta economic environment terms group will become self-radicalized, conflict could escalate. Short one type of force preemption lead to escalating crisis conflict and over research reemerge there to research more canceler fracture perception could result in interstate conflict and build up regional capability could lead to counterbalance cooperation like the increase in difficult solve topicality interpretation economic engagement must be conditional shit in 96 economic engagement purpose integration negotiation conditional engagement for different use carrying economic engagement conference symmetric tab violation of ethics you not allow giving that equivalent offer vote negative equivalent gives competition for conditions capital and say no argument keep the fight back against the after now next time critique the one is the perfection of slavery Farley into the fight the movement away from slavery segregation neo segregation movement slavery perfection all over when like the way first as one slave product the slave product when they pay for freedom when it's on freedom by willing itself on free for legal rights and equal life only after legal quality can the slave perfection self as a slave the dream of quality hierarchy the prayer for equal rights slavery is death the prayer for equal rights the slave for a perfect moment that Cuban civil society is anti-black their call for engagement it's call for racism and 11 began to establish ideology because they're crew for Afro-Cuban while maintaining what control Cuban nationalism had a black and grateful for abolition of slavery recognition our sacrifice liberate so I'm not talking about socialization although we're writing about where you social test of black the racial equality how the Afro-Cuban and Czech races and these supportive characters distortion not affirmative rhetorical silence what is the active sense that allows this to continue Dr. Gretchen 97 the ideology what people operate through rhetorical sense of colossal honesty intervention silence surrounding what is key political protect what privilege silence active not passive the absence speech about what dignify existence discourse silence signifies the national condition of students silence allows a hierarchical structure surely does speech is tired of isolation of racially approach leads to determination of humanity marital in 84 as long as institutional research so texted erupted to confrontation when intellectual artifact to comparative virtual general quality creating and to me ideological justification prejudice by hesitating dedicating ourselves to the pursuit of peace social justice dynamic and natural share if the pizza black American remain isolated result may be determination of humanity itself now it's alternative by all costs by any means necessary following intent seeing the undiscovered country wanted invitation by adding we fragment in memory of repetition as a truth repetition opposed to freedom raw knowledge of what we do and knowledge of what we are doing require except for another resolute to question what is entitled nothing to that's our Kaplan text the United States federal government fully funded a program to cover 4.8% of the surface of the Earth's ocean in a model layer of 0.1 micrometer diameter latex particle either hollow or core shell morphology bearing a conventionalization stabilization system that is inactivated in salt water the United States federal government should increase funding for disease monitoring information sharing and zoonotic data collection worldwide salt water Morgan and 11 bachelor like would require several water per 2 PMA and water 1 micrometer of regions probably having able to 1% able to current forcing CO2 forcing global warming fully all said microbial could really be a powerful engine response to climate change solves diseases CISD 96 when classification new to the current world international community may now learn about when research mobile assistant diagnosis can be start diagnosis elemental network disease strength go into transition turn Castro credibility economic reforms are coming right now in Cuba swag and Rockefeller 13 the Castro appears to recognize private sector only which is all predicament office of the domestic political partly for radical shock theory human government for graduate to consider way to offer advantage turn currently economic political constitution surrounding a delicate ideological meal. The plan creates a political world that kills performance, causes instability. Hernandez and more way because capital flooding Cuban economy that has not completed reform process that kind of productive advantages would have an influence on Cuban domestic content dealings to reverse policy making position the government would finance all present tactical situation king available political power not to fight post government challenge political consideration shape the restructuring line no extinction for diseases poster no five was able to survive every disease natural social favor literally solid filter because there's no danger in extinction that global pandemics are unlike the Ridley 12 HIV was the only tropical virus to go pandemic mad cow SARS the bird flu new global pandemic is growing less like a mitigation decline throwing mild enough for the victims to soldier on infection of medical science devices or HR's zoonotic disease and mutate slowly unfortunately in 2005 they first jumped into humanity molecular to contaminate involved to the virus and invaded animal cells may be ill soon for hijacking human cells this may be going to limit virus go on to agriculture no impact warming Willis and Tanner the most recent climate fossil evidence because that CO2 will be at 12,000 ppm temperature is 10 degrees of water Celsius warmer water battle with 2 CL large oil stage at the fossil market eco climate optimum temperature very opposite rapid vegetation response to climate change mitigation adaptation will stop extinction medicine 09 media behavior extreme and low probability catastrophic consequences emission over the next few decades will mild consequences severe impacts of required century of no mitigation particularly impacts assume that we have no adaptation but will occur because people will then turn to increase carbon emissions keep to check high altitude water vapor which always causes more warming. Andrews and 10. There has been a rash of incidents in which climate alarmists have been falsifying data, exaggerating effects of rising carbon level having little effect on global temperature. Carbon level has been rising tropics that go the lower temperature has caused global water vapor to levels dropping. Water vapor is strong and green has been contributing to 72% of global greenhouse more than carbon degrees. Water level vapor to expect tremendous high with carbon level decline is that in hospital hundreds of millimeters ago. No global warming appears to accurately consider changing in water vapor level. Now CO2 is key to avert a global agricultural crisis and collapse of the biosphere. And so in O2, the relationship to the worldwide leads to protection of the loss of 2/3 of all of the species. Warming pales significantly its impact nowhere. So the loss of ecosystem cropland and pasture will lead to the loss of the remaining forest and grassland. The factor rise for doubling the CO2 predicted 80% more increase in air CO2 can increase the agricultural output will continue to nature. The extinction of 2/3 of all species should within the next century agricultural output that dramatically increase. Now that outweighs its own to the agricultural crisis or the climate crisis. The agricultural driven crisis almost into words that still doubt about the climate crisis that even the best available technology fully deployed cannot prevent the forecast problem. We've resolved the issue of CO2 emission by invoking the precautionary principle. We have determined the agricultural determined environmental crisis will occur. Now negative feedback singer in 11 CO2 promotion platforms and 11 faces on a technical camera. Heating or cooling effects of CO2 with thermal radio force of plants. Aerosol that reflects significant solar radiation cooling planet droplets creating more than a cloud that cool globe. Now no impact to CO2 level rise hyper and 11 CO2 level rise to be 100 ppm to having getting away from the currently 2001 would have take 300 years and will not notice doubling of CO2 level climate eventually unavailable frequency expect that decrease the CO2 increase in correlation that causation. Now going to no war. Nuclear war outweighs all probability and immediacy. Whiteman in 94 many other nations prevented nuclear war attempted to obtain each chance to receive a substantial resource to United States and other developed countries given the immediate nature of the expansion of the entire logical and a priority over impact has no war predictions. Nuclear wars are uniquely impossible to predict. During 99 major wars have to by intensive weapon proliferation they were deterred for. There is a history of surprise attack probable nuclear war includes other arguing disappeared history surprise rapid destabilization efforts difference its contribution. We have enough WMD's cause war Douglas 04. We have an virtual transformation war such consequences which will think of the pursuing and analysis technology and build atomic bombs. You can mark the carbon now nuclear war causing extinction star in 2011. Nuclear war definitely caused launch of capital less than 1% destruction of global climate change of massive destruction of the earth protected ozone layer that will result in global nuclear famine that kills up to 1 billion people.
Did you read them all?
Yeah.
Okay, so first let's talk about the CIR. The Bush evidence says that Boehner is pushing reform. I'm confused on why pushing reform means that it will pass.
Everyone's getting on board. Rank and file GOPs are converting by the day. House leadership says they are dedicating to getting reform passed. The House Republicans have been the issue in recent debates. So if Boehner is getting on board, Boehner is pushing, all these House Republicans are getting on board, then immigration reform will pass.
Okay, Boehner's pushing. Why does that mean Obama has to push?
Boehner is pushing it. That's just a unique story. The reason Boehner is pushing it is because of Obama's political capital and his ability to horse trade.
Okay, so then counterplan, status of the counterplan in K.
Conditional. The status quo is always a logical option. However, this is contextually conditional.
Contextually conditional. Can you explain that?
We will never say that normalizing trade relations is a good idea. However, the advocacy of the negative will stay unconditional. However, the counterplan, whether we can kick it or not, will be conditional.
So like, okay, like for the K, that's fine. So the second counterplan plank is that the U.S. should increase funding for disease monitoring. Who monitors disease?
The international community.
The international community. Where does the counterplan text mandate that?
The counterplan mandates that the United States federal government increase its disease monitoring. Our cards indicate that if the United States takes that lead, the international community will follow.
Okay, that's fine. So let's talk about the race K. So Farley evidence, it's just that the 1EC is a perfection of slavery. I'm kind of confused on how that contextualizes.
You say that,
can you like explain that?
Well, we should not put our faith in the United States federal government and that a policy of the United States federal government will result in the perfection of slavery. Even if you claim that there's like good impacts such as like maybe warming or disease, we say that it's just the slave bowing down to the state, that we are tying ourselves and our salvation to a institution that
we're tying our salvation to the state. So it's just a like nuanced USFG link. Is that like
yeah,
the
basically the Farley
argument?
evidence says that the United States federal government should not be used.
Okay, so then the second card, that Cuban society is anti-black. So Cuban society is anti-black and engagement is unethical with them. Is that the argument?
That's part of the argument. We would also say that any engagement such as like with trying to export their organic agriculture or solve for zoonotic diseases would always backlash against the Afro-Cubans because they're civil society.
What is like anti-black about the agricultural system or the healthcare system?
I mean, like,
Oh God, we will get that too.
You'll get it.
Just look at the
Can
people.
you give me like a sneak peek then? I'm
Yeah,
kind
you
of
claim
confused.
universal health care. That universal health care is not as universal as you think because it only benefits the reformers and the business class, which is not the Afro-Cuban population.
And just
The
imagine-
agriculture sector is also racist because the only reason you claim that industrial agriculture is unsustainable right now is because it's going to affect white populations around the world, while black populations have been starving for
I
decades.
guess that's a
Then you're
debate
gonna
we had.
hold- okay.
Thanks though. That's out of the cross extend. So.
Oh, we'll take prep. Stop prep, 618. Oh, order's gonna be, oh, Coop and I have a flash drive. Oh, we have. I like this.
We're gonna do 10 minutes or 8?
What have you been getting?
We've been getting 10 because that's what the invitation says. But
Okay, what about you, Centennial? What have you been getting?
We've been getting.
Okay. I've only touched one round so far. I mean, we did 8, but like honestly, like it's up to you two. I really don't.
I give no shits.
Okay.
Harrison, what would you like to do?
I think 8's fine for us.
Okay.
It'll be
Okay.
All right, and you all have time in yourselves?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You said 618, right?
Yep.
Alright, it's the only 2AC document on the flash drive. Transition. Ag. Actually, transition, no war ag. Then the K, the counter plan, and politics.
He is where?
Oh, I goofed. Flash drive, please. Start prep.
God damn it.
Yeah, that's what partners are for, dude.
Oh, so close. That T already made it.
You'd be surprised.
Alright, stop prep. 5:55. You know, can't let people win debates on TQPQ. It's just.
We'll see.
We must be conditioned.
Alright, saved to the flash drive is
How much time do you
2AC.
have left now?
2AC, 5:55.
policy new?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Can you turn on that light? Okay.
Yeah, I guess. I'm gonna have to turn it off soon when my computer's down out of batteries.
Do you need a, we have a power strip.
We have a power strip.
If you are interested.
I am interested.
House
No.
So I'm gonna assume it's TK counterpoint this is.
Yes.
No? Okay, we're good.
Y'all are good.
You got the new shit already.
Here's some.
God, this chair is so freaking cool.
Okay, we good? Alright.
Zoonotic diseases cause extinction. They don't require pathogen magnitude for your impact on because it eliminates humans' ability to evolve the plant cells. Because we said the Cuban government under a credible healthcare model, the transfer credibility to group the argument the plan is key to reforms that's called for 2012. In practice, the government is losing control of privatization of organ services, licensing pertaining to low-skilled services and non-essential industries. A plan to move to 170,000 people off the government payroll. It issued only 24,000 licenses. Doctors are leaving the profession. Healthcare is faltering. A relief came, which office began pumping millions of dollars aid into Cuba. Cuba's salvation was expected to come in the form of oil. 5 wells didn't turn up any oil. The government desperately needs the influx of international credit. Cuba needs a new sponsor given the Chinese, Brazilians, and the others. This return should have actualized in 2008 when we reached travel restrictions. It doesn't cause a flood of capital because it occurs at a low rate. Yes, extinction from diseases. They evolve past pathogens. That's the poster evidence is overly reductive. Yes, zoonotic diseases pandemic spread because of international travel patterns. Zoonotic diseases are slow. They rapidly apply without a pathogen. Go to the Norway contention. They have read terrible evidence on this question for good research. Robin evidence indicates that global politics, regional alliances, partnerships, and lack of escalation policies proved that there was no counterbalancing and there was cooperation between nations. The raw evidence is a theoretical defense answers the wise, the warrants, and the Wiseman evidence. Yes, we can predict that DOR 99 evidence is overly reductive. The international community can be generated through epistemology and international relations conflicts. Yes, WMDs may cause war, but nobody escalates. Also doesn't cause extinction. The STAR evidence is from a scientific hack. You should reject it. Agriculture advantage warming causes extinction. Reduces the carrying capacity of the environment. Plant solves because we set into sustainable agriculture model. Yes, impact of warming. Consensus outweighs scientific experts. You should not default to the IDZOs. When you're looking for scientific consensus, you should resolve to consensus because that's the best way to evaluate global warming. The CO2 mitigation and adaptation are insufficient to solve. We solve through carbon sequestration, which is net bigger internal link. The CO2 agriculture debate group, but we solve organic agriculture increases nitrogen in the soil, allows carbon sequestration in plants and soil, which increases plant yields. That's Cali Lava. Too much CO2 is worse for the road goes and tofu. They think they're hitting the delicate amount. Natural balance of carbon dioxide has been thrown off the balance. Slash and burn practices are releasing more carbon dioxide, and the plant can keep up with increasing carbon dioxide and inhibits the absorption of nitrogen. So plants are not going to flourish. There's 1/3 of the food is wasted. Hunger is due to poor distribution system, inadequate production. The poorest communities, organic system, higher yields under climatic extremes, and traditional smallholder systems. All of these are critical to achieving food security. Stop the credit food security. Additionally, warming is net negative. There's a ceiling to its positive effect on C 11, rivaling the CO2 effects or the effects of changes in temperature and soil. Crops develop quickly under warmer temperatures, lead to shorter periods of lower year temperature, dry faster, evaporation of water. Exposure to high temperatures can damage photosynthesis, the reproduction of other cells. Over major crops that reveal yield loss and degree for warming. Negative effects are balanced on up to 2 degrees Celsius, which after negative effects dominate for 4 degrees Celsius. Crops not as warming or detrimental. You should reject it. So evidence because they've been taking money for big government for years now. Negative feedbacks don't outweigh the same evidence. He's also been taking from money from ExxonMobil. No, we solve the negative feedbacks. Additionally, yes, their impact is CO2 level wise. We cause carbon sequestration. They go to the top category. Counter-interpretation engagement must be unconditional. The 2005 engagement requires building economic links, conditionalities, and linking of the benefits to another state of and economic and political conditions. Engagement applies ties with no strings attached. Conditionality attaches the strings for our interpretation. First, over-limited set and interpretation crushes the vast majority. Cuba and Venezuela as the unconditional plan mechanism. Second, hit-based checks under nature or barter rules. We have to read the F conditionally heard after predictably solves your impact. We didn't make impossible. Don't vote us on the critique. Conditionalities of voting issues. Hope any issues to our attitude. Skew cross-application to turn prevent too easy. Often feels from our strategy. So might be advocacy. Never prevent debate. Position debate decreases portable and from debate. C-shall education never go in depth. Prevents education for rate. Counter-interpretation. One conditional option solves your offense. 3. Always agrees disagreeing with the one. Still skews affirmative strategy because you can introduce contradictory positions. Still links to all of our offense. Prior questions will never be fully settled. We must take action even under conditions of uncertainty. Carbon 99, while debates continue, it's important to review analysis of the material results for all theories oriented toward the goal of extending moral inclusion in the present climate. Epistemology, uncertainty, important political concerns hanging in the balance. We cannot afford to wait for the meta question to be answered, nor can we have regrettable alternative in order to be an agenda can be kicked into gear in order. We have what we for us a question which comes first, sorting out the meta-theoretical issues or working out a credible institutional vision. Those two can be pursued together via imagination. Emission is not exclusion because no discursive act can be followed. Just because the crunch evidence says emission is exclusion doesn't mean that Chris and I and myself understand our privilege. Warming is a form of structural violence, allowing warming to continue perpetuates all inequalities. 2008 climate change is an issue of justice. One endanger and intersex race and class, people of color and low income communities bear disproportionate burdens for environment, though less responsible African Americans are more vulnerable to health, housing, economic well-being, culture, and social stability, harm for storming climate variability, warming, amplifying here all existing inequalities. Some global warming policies, also racial justice policy, domestic reduction to provide the greatest benefit of the global South 6 with the highest African American population are expected to experience intense storms relevant to global warming, expected to increase warnings of African Americans over heat depth is 200% of the rate for whites. Their disproportionate number of lives saved would be African American. Methodology is always imperfect and endorsing multiple epistemological frameworks and correct the blind spots of youth. The permutation is the way to gain a historical perspective of the black body. Historian Druckmann, 2002, using several different approaches is valuable for developing knowledge because there's something less way to search for knowledge to adopt critical multiplism, multiple perspective data frameworks, and multiple analysis can rely on perspectives, actions, and partial correctives for limitation. The state is key to climate solutions. Even we need to reject state policies, we need them for climate change. Community and state engagement is transformative. That's Macaulay. 2011. Much credit has been given to black churches in the South community organizing. The church should have a profound role in connecting community outward. Schools also have the ability as a second mobilization teacher label, encourage institutional innovation. Gene teachers accepted organizing people into school communities association. Black teachers engage in collaborative relationships and doing so exercise agency role. Black reformers recognize the value of education. Antithesis to slavery education became the central meaning for reformers. Southern blacks have an instrument for constructing new collective identities. And the one he sees description of the world is based on data and empiric statistics, which should be the framework for weighing arguments. Our theories are falsifiable and can be endorsed with confidence. There's can't the counterpoint. Permutation do both. They can't solve the one easy advantage, doesn't solve industrial agriculture because it doesn't set us on a sustainable model. Our internal links carbon sequestration, they just reflect particles. Additionally, doesn't solve the disease internally because U.S. intervention fails. Weber evidence says other countries don't want us to intervene. Plant cells environmental leadership, Parliament 2009, lifting the embargo would open up a constructive partnership between Cuba and U.S. for developing compatible and sustainable environmental policies. Cuba become a model for environmental protection on a global scale. Solves inevitable extinction causes of 2009. Rejuvenating America will be the turning point. We hope that the U.S. will become a leader in effort to address the threats confronting the survival of human species and inspire the U.S. It'll do a lot to spur international community into action. You go first. Choose blocking the progress of positive intervention by the U.S. can provide vital catalysts, selective negotiation, not be difficult to break the U.S. Interesting convergence on the global good in the oceans, on land, regenerating soils, forests, and rivers in the atmosphere, reducing emissions of pollutants, reflecting things doesn't make sense. Gas in the atmosphere trap heat through greenhouse effect, which means heat still stays in the atmosphere, gets absorbed, even is reflected in the ocean. Heat does more harm than good. Robot 2010 bubble. Method will bring its own risks. These include our impacts and conviction of the ocean. Once you go, the ocean surfaces would remove the bubbles. Cooler ocean would absorb CO2 more effectively, enhancing ozone acidification. Bubble clouds would also do changes in economic circulation and evaporation would be affected, which would affect the atmosphere heating and atmospheric circulation. Additionally, it kills biodiversity because it doesn't solve a sustainable model. Go to CIR. Obamacare funds. Allen and Brown 2017. The we're all out of the ACA endangering immigration because first in the White House been for politically criticism. Obama struggle sidetrack plans for immigration. House Republicans have been able to avoid a major political tip for sitting on the Senate passed bill and lifting the embargo would increase U.S. exports. This became 2011. 2000 there was a partial release in ag exports was permitted to U.S. exports from less than $1 million to 292 million. Current exporters cannot take advantage of private U.S. financing. This is disproportionate impact on would be small business. Stop the guard and small businesses. Legislative gridlock thumbs to the dissent because Obama can't do anything. This is specifically true for immigration and Nexo solves all Miller 711. The more Obama's talking about the issue, the better chance the bill dies. Any principles the president said more for the horse Rogan's dragging the bill right to avoid aligning Obama. The mere mention of Obama's name the hell makes the hell no practice shutter taxes you and Rogan's biggest president. A liability officials good won't rule out further executive action. Gridlock has driven Obama down the path before he used executive authority on deportation. Key difficulties like a large over House Rogan's after redistributing wealth of the states. ECC lightning around PCs counterproductive. 2009. No one plays a more important role in the public exchange of the president pronounces raising the margins and stake numbers. The opposing party given extra like the president losing. Even they have no ideological objections. With the presence of Rosa party competition in Congress has already been a decisive factor. No war from economic decline. That's the rest of 2012 analysis. Under financial crisis lead to diversionary wars. Peacefulness in 2012 is the same as 07. Interstate conflict has declined since financial crisis. Recession has not generated protection, nationalism, and ethnic exclusion. Given the severity of the UA financial crisis, in comparison with the Depression by the standard outcome, looks impressive. Performative contradictions are a voting issue because they kill 2AC advocacy. You cannot articulate these positions. It undermines the position's counter-interpretation. You can do anything but not contradict.
Wait a second.
No, 7 seconds. Okay. Reasons to reject a team other than performing contradictions and conditionality.
No, those are the two.
Okay, let's go on to the proceed transition and regular. What's different about zoonotic diseases and regular diseases?
They don't require a pathogen and they evolve
Wait,
more
so
rapidly.
they don't require a pathogen, how do they spread?
They don't, they keep evolving out of other places. They don't require a pathogen, so they can
Wait,
evolve
you
anywhere.
realize diseases are
No,
caused by
Harrison
these
is
substances
speaking.
called
They don't
pathogens.
require an environment. They
Okay,
are
they don't require an environment.
That's, sorry.
If that's true, how can they mutate, get naturally selected by the environment and kill these people?
Can you repeat the question?
If there is no environment, how can they physically mutate, like natural selection?
I mean, if a disease rapidly intensifies, it would obviously spread. I'm sorry if I'm being unclear, but that's as per the Kessev et al.
Alright.
Evidence in the 1 C, it just says it
Now,
spreads because it
question
gets
is,
smaller.
like Cuba has all these zoonotic diseases, it's got like breakout right there on that island.
I'm sorry.
It's like these diseases got breakout right on that
No,
island.
our internal link is NGO expansion in the Cuban healthcare model, which is sufficient to solve diseases in places, in hotspots where
Okay.
US intervention fails. So that's also a reason why the countermeasures is.
Agriculture, how does, I'm confused, like, CO2 sequestration is able to reduce the amount of CO2 in the air, am I correct?
It's because the industrial agriculture model is failing. We set a sustainable agriculture model that solves for.
Okay, so like, how, like, do these countries suddenly like, all get on board in this sustainable agriculture and like?
Well, you asked this in 1AC Cross-Ex, it's about cost comparison, right? So countries
Yeah, sure.
and corporations obviously will do something that's cost beneficial. Cuba has a cost beneficial model that they
Alright.
would latch onto.
Now, just a clarification question, you read all these cards on the warming fluid, am I correct?
Yeah, I can give you the author names that I read, but I read Perthuro, I read, Chris, do you have the Lee evidence on your flow, or do you just have NRC and the?
Oh yeah, no, you read Lou.
Yeah, I read.
You marked
wait.
Lou at food
Okay,
security.
counter plan, why is intervention critical to be able to solve for the diseases?
No, intervention fails, that's our argument.
Where
US,
does
other
the counter
countries,
plan, where does the counter plan mandate intervention?
well, it says the US should
Model.
model diseases, so.
So we should track diseases that cause an intervention?
Okay, so if you don't go into other countries, then you don't solve the advantage,
If
because
you
it's
don't-
about global.
If other countries model off the United States, why does that
Well,
not solve?
we've taken question of that as per the 1AC web
Okay.
evidence.
So
It
the
says
counter plan also
direct
mandates
intervention fails.
zoonotic disease monitoring, how is this not able to solve for your non-environment pathogens?
Doesn't spread globally, does't supply the world with the Cuban healthcare model.
Alright, so, you say that backscattering light is worse for, backscattering, increasing albedo is bad for biodiversity, what's so bad about microbubbles and latex microbubbles?
They don't allow biodiversity to occur.
Wait,
because
latex
it's like-
microbubbles will specifically collapse biodiversity? Do you have a card?
This is just ridiculous pseudoscience,
Do you-
there's no way that.
Do you have a
this-
card on latex bubbles?
Yeah, we read it in the 2AC.
The robotic evidence is specific to the bubble method.
Yes.
That's fine.
That's what I love.
Okay, what if you're trying to Separate.
I have 455 left.
I'll show.
Oh, yeah, we had the scores.
Here.
Um,
Alright, ready for an order?
mhm.
Advantage cap plan, decay. Transition. No war, transition, war. Give me that stick here. Alright,
1 second.
You're right.
So it's counterplan.
yes. Ready? Okay. The camp plan solves 100% case via the camp plan in the lens of sufficiently versus optimally. The plan may be optimal solving someone unless they have an impact on solving after the sufficiency should be enough. The camp the first plan to have makes disease monitoring we should be able to solve because if they're interlinked by model, that means as long as the US monitors disease, the other country will be able to model and they get the disease information and solve it for themselves. No intervention necessary. They see permutation of votes except the permutation links to the net benefit. You'll see that in the 1 year and also on the case flow. Except they do not say that the camp links to policy. Do not let them do that in the 1 year. That's the framing. Negative block strategy was predicate to so no new 1 year side making arguments. Once the skills strategy makes the F always is this. They say that doesn't solve disease except the monitor internally solve their modeling internally as it's in the overview. Now integrate genetic disease monitoring with the statistical surveillance, critical converting epidemics. That's Murphy 98. The authorities having answers all over disease. Their answer in the form of proposing expand global disease surveillance, global training program, global standard funding. However, someone this strategy needed all these strategies now fully developed. The CDC might gain new funds, but there's no parallel sense good having this happening contradicts the policy saying the data clearly show that consider probably was the control Martin card and decode not only saying that the camel cells in violation except the US violation classification that's instant agreement possible invoking economic violation compliance with environmental regulation rebuild while the free trade actors are basically helping to trade agreements long term events over cycle equation common about quality development country technological wealthy nothing to about quality now protection is the worst impact million 88 the one the government was a trade by country with talent of trade within 1997 some major war chain awards economic national environmental trade control etc the philosophy of philosophy war trade relation and create and maintain world peace also environmental civilian that's east for 95 so violation causes radiation more deadly economic also range more common the world scale implication test more common release air pollution fire was air factor was the level shift in planning as the world scale environmental expire making humans also environmental also the house blocking will not be able to make sure that they don't solve the violation impact because the US will never take action regardless. They say that the capital makes no sense. You know? The second plane the capital solves warning because the microbiologists increase albedo to a sufficient level. They don't have a cognitive conscience of latest smart molecule which solve all your technical issues. The science is balance, evidence causing creating ocean informants increase the Earth's stability, builds on links to the natural process, family cost of backing environment for ocean point increase aerial efficiency, foam increase system for productivity of the ocean stability, each bubble where state solid droplets can blow around here, increasing outlet concentrated cloud droplet with increasing outlet of cloud and also the science is on our side because reflecting ozone outlet is enough to reflect the light because the light particles are not trapped by the orbital layer. Now they say they killed the ocean. They did not read the terminal impact of this. Don't let them do that in the 1 year because of the 1 year sampling on the side of the biodiversity defense also applies to this. Also the chemical doesn't hurt the environment. That's 2020 level. The most organisms can cultivate all the radius species current environment high levels and consider they can be safely the larger organisms managed with their physical presence. Now also there's an impact that's the ITO by 2007. The marine organisms natural sustainability changing habitat natural habitation to common environment sources come out with the marine strategy primary only point of mechanism. What's the reader solving the lights in North Island? Marine population reestablish this contribute to natural cover natural ecosystem recovery common murder equals to highly resilient average age, and guard now more the criticism, world conceived implementation, just a test of competition. Conditionalized good. We get counterphasia, we get to conditional position, we cannot cross by humans, arbitrary, to stealing, we start offense, information retards, they testing out for the multilingual force, to select the best arguments, and then to make strategic reactive decision, large amount of information, short time ready. That's key to information, effective decision making, stature, information, stature, stable amounts, and two's average scale, force scale to be tested from the left and the right. This trains us to be a better after the stand up to greatest in the real world. Now always air to net flex, because economic game is a vague term that justifies many mechanisms over infinite areas like energy, drug violence, organization, food transportation, and then multiply that by 3 countries. Conditionality key checking answer, broad topic, and human and negative attribute apply. Also the link to known office, because they didn't spot their agents, to allow students to shifting the kilogram. Also twos have multiple formation, and the alpha movement target because judges vote there regardless. Also we also accused and now they go for arguments of low college, which means that their education stands and now go no word advantage. The no word advantage was basically shadow extension. Our cards are qualified. The Wednesday piece of evidence specifically says that no one prediction failed. The Dorn evidence is that international relations are cloudy to the point where that war could happen any all. Even if war doesn't happen, our impacts are still tangible because things like economic decline and lack of food will still cause agriculture and famine. Also, the Canadian finished their robot kind of Wednesday. Nuclear war causes extinction. The star evidence specifically says that nuclear winter theories happen in fall survival forward. It causes massive radiation, which kills people even if the war does not cause this danger. The international institutions not be able to solve either. The piece of Dorn evidence and the piece of Wednesday eventual evidence specifically says that countries are more likely because of the realist international system that makes them more likely to compete against each other. That was the transition advantage. You mess up their transition advantage. They have not extended a single 1-2 war. Do not let them do that again with 1 or else they will incentivize the shitty, twisty case government. Show credibility this. He says the key to reform. It's not a key to reform. It's not key to reforms are not happening right now because there's gradual one coming. Humans trying to liberalize the economy, but requires getting a ideological leader. The plan disrupts that by Iraqi the domestic political law. That's just why you Rockefeller average. Now there's a gradual transition now. That is coming in 10-3. The whole song of reforms, agriculture towards probably travel for some last second cable limitations, slow change in land to political theory. That completely solved land. The Catholic Church playing a role in towards liberalization. Cuban open to common the Obama facility great trade, travel and communication. Also travel and industry commercialization happening right now. There's quality 10-7. The Cuba's biggest travel insurance allows the country with take legal things home automotive lifting rules and companies towards hotels and expanding internet. The role legalized government extended internal lease and invade small businesses. The government now will be in this gradually big enterprise. Now also that solves the app in the long term. That's low piece leaving 10-8. The Cuba's unemployment. Page economic reform political liberalization. Cuban travel out Cuban to come out U.S. Cuban Americans appreciate recent agreement. The rescue of the states of the sea. The show wants to recognize passport and show what's to negotiate crime like Washington current great state who are now engaged in the process of democratic legalization. These how the process of reform tell their misunderstanding. There was no time frame distinction in the tweets, which is that as long as reforms inevitably happen, we should solve their transition managing, especially because their internal links from freaking 2005, which means that the impact is typically high. Now there's no impact is desired today. The positive evidence is not productive. The positive evidence is a sign of claim that you need a host to survive. Disease is a way to fast and slow because they will never cause attention because disease needs to survive on itself. It cannot survive alone in the environment because the environment is hostile to these design gain the full way. The slow mutation causes evidence and impingling die because mutations are very slow impingling die. What else will cause attention? Things like the black pain always taking out like vaccinations and the US will always intervene in the long term. Have you ever played governments put all their money into resolving diseases, which is the reason why the impact will never happen. Now go back to the Council credibility they said. They don't concede the link coming out of the QAC. The plan killed the Cuban credibility because of the fast and reforms. Now the Cuban government cannot control the outcome. This is framing issue. Coding 2000, the Castro regime for removal and embargo and ensure the second, third order efficiency and ability to control the outcome. One of the problems after really popular excuse me for forward economy. I will not defeat the immediate fundamental use of people online. Significant source of legitimacy. Now a transition from a commodity economy must be slow. The fast reforms cause transition. That is 8+8. Cuba's condition that ensure the economy change the result of say Cuba is unstable to the common government positive. Therefore the gradual argument deserves serious condemnation. Economic reform are destabilized. They require properly to stay in the new model social relations between the state and the people. Cuba's problem political system can not be the starting point serious problem of a reconsideration process. Also lifting embargo will pressure Cuba to rapid reform. Cuban anticipate real damage to the U.S. chain core. Stopping embargo will increase pressure rapidly change by uncovering the main excuse of pride and fail to take economic opportunity just basic slide. Now go to the warring advantage. The big mistake on the warring advantage they have conceded the water vapor turn the water vapor turn states that if you increase the amount of CO2 atmosphere that decreases the water vapor levels, which actually stops warming because water vapor contributes to 70% of warming and is 72% more likely a greenhouse gas than CO2 is much stronger. So they have conceded that correlation, which is that the plan reduces CO2 atmosphere that causes water vapor levels to rise in the upper stratosphere, which causes more warming. Our studies are not based off of ESO for that one, so that's the reason why they apply. Now go to the CO2 agriculture rate right now. The class of the global biosphere is indefinitely the world planet. Global agriculture crisis right now. Families will be never by 2015. We have an internal link better to their food. Families are because absent CO2 plants will be less efficient, forcing the global development unused farmlands that collapse the biodiversity. Now this always internal case because there's a near-certain risk of agricultural crisis. That was the ESO evidence framing government coming out of the 1AC. While there's uncertain risk of warming. Warming doesn't even cause extinction because of things like biodiversity control with indoors. The particular died as our Willis evidence has studies, but they're saying that CO2 levels were 3 times higher in the past since no one still died. Now the line says that there's alternate cause of food, except there's no alternate cause because CO2 fertilization is bigger internally. That's piece of ESO evidence. Now he said that warming house plan. There's a framing issue for this argument because all their arguments in the context of temperature rises with the cow plant, the advanced capital itself. Also CO2 is key to plant growth. That's ESO 2001 from The SOCOs of classified doing everything better. The eco-pagan fashion pollution will use larger roots of larger speed grazing food. There are thousands of no exaggeration of other such sites that highlight show the very shaped things that only see it causes it solves soil erosion detrimentation that's easily possible with increasing ground cover, the effects of wind and water reduce soil erosion reduce. There's a self-intending to every roots. Trash from previous unplanted land becomes supporting of more abundant life. Also, the ESO index are stupid because ESO's all applications will make sites qualify. The press that precedes bias because everyone has a personal ideological bias. Qualification test the influence of the bias over the validity you gain. Finally, send a negative feedback argument. Negative feedback is not really available because plants increase albedo of Earth through it releases things like aerosols.
How does the U.S. intervene in countries to solve diseases when the country doesn't want their presence?
Okay, two arguments. One is that if countries are desperate enough, they'll lead to that.
Which piece of evidence that you read in the 2NC says
That's just a
countries
human
are
psychology of it. We don't need a piece of
desperate
evidence to
enough.
make that claim. The second argument is that you're internally
All right, let's make this about
If
evidence,
you're-
Michael.
Murphy 98 evidence. He's a professor of biology and veterinary medicine. Authorities have the answer to all emerging diseases. Their answers have been in the form of proposals.
Where's the warrant in this piece of evidence that says other countries can intervene to solve diseases in other
proposals to
countries?
expand global disease surveillance, a global training program, and a global stable funding base.
Yeah, which
However,
says they,
these things
Which piece
are
of
not
evidence says that they go into other countries?
They
If this is-
don't need to go into the other countries. As long as the surveillance data is available, other
Alright.
countries will know that they have a pandemic going on in their country.
the
They
end
use the
of
US's
the-
data so that they solve their own problems.
All right,
That's their
that's
argument.
fine. CDC may be getting new funds, but there is a parallel sense of good times ahead. Where in this piece of evidence says that they can go other places?
Okay, I literally just said it is not about going into other places. It's
Okay.
merely about surveillance so that
How
when
does
the disease,
how does surveillance prevent a
Because-
disease outbreak?
because surveillance finds out if a disease is about to outbreak somewhere. And if we have accurate information about that, the US can share its data so that other countries can work to solve their own problems within their own countries.
How does it solve zoonotic diseases?
Zoonotic diseases can be quarantined for one. Zoonotic diseases can also be cured by vaccines for two. Zoonotic diseases also don't cause extinction of a species.
In the environmental leadership turn. Environmental leadership. Invoking economic penalties to ensure compliance with environmental agreements could rebuild the wall against free trade. What
Yes.
part of the add-on causes compliance and invokes penalties? It sounds like we get other countries on board. Where's
No,
the
the
link to
thing
this
about
term?
environmental leadership is that environmental leadership has a positive side, which are add-on claims, but it also has a negative side.
Where's
because,
the link to environmental leadership with this?
Because if you want environmental leadership to be effective, you need penalties for countries that violate the norms that you're talking about. to
Where in
solve
the
things
piece
like
of evidence does it say that environmental leadership
invoking
needs to invoke?
economic penalties to ensure compliance with environmental agreements could rebuild the wall against free
We
trade.
just cooperate with other countries. How do we force
You don't
environmental
only
agreements
cooperate
with
with
other
other
people?
countries. If you want the cooperation to be effective, you need
Where,
penalties for not
where in the
complying with
Pacone
it.
evidence that we read in the 2AC says that we cause environmental compliance?
You don't want to claim that, except that's what actually happens, is our argument. That's what happens in the real world. Yes, your evidence is not going to say that environmental leadership is negative because it's advocating for environmental leadership.
All right, we've
Except
been,
our piece of evidence
we've
invokes a
been
different story for
protectionist.
that.
We've been protectionist before. What's the brink to this impact argument? Like, what has to happen for us to spill over into global protectionatory measures?
If it's enough to solve environmental leadership to the point of solving extinction, that will need massive trade barriers. It's about the magnitude of your internal link compared to the impact.
All right,
Yes,
water
we've
va-
had environmental leadership in
where's
the
the
past
internal
too,
link for
except there's no reason why it's
CO2
built
ag?
over the brink.
CO2 ag. Where's the internal link from CO2 increase to solving for water vapor?
Okay, that is the piece of Andrew's evidence. It is a correlation that is cited based off stratospheric levels and tropospheric levels of water vapor.
Just called 1 and R.
Order is gonna be politics.
Can you give me this?
Yeah. Is it in the Dropbox here?
Oh, no.
Okay. I need to then. You ready? All right.
This always in terms of decay. Economic collapse is the only scenario where conflict escalation is rationally justified cooperation and deterrence breakdown in this volatile situation. Now, economic collapse makes their impact more likely for economic conditions, diverse attention for solving things like the disease and to develop the vaccines and be able to solve for also destroys Cuba transition and causing more instability in their economy. Now, lack of funding means the plan will get rolled back. Now, in terms of Cuban transition into climate, in terms of the United States and recent immigration policy has capacity to change atmosphere dynamics to favor efforts to tranquil Cuba and to legitimate like we will stop the neighbor Cuban immigrant population. We need to or exchange commerce, economic reform. Obama could have its own one moment. It'll go line by line. First, Obamacare is not connected to immigration, and immigration will pass. Bartlett is 1217. There are no differences in healthcare. It's down and process immigration service that would provide benefits. We just got how solution will for. Let's at least check immigration. Let's what I have only got better bureaucracy solved for it. It's not 11-2. Obama's not blocked out by Obama can't get anything. Public slave don't believe that he will have a vast bureaucracy to push the rest of his agenda. And as most of the government statement needs to suffer, that Obama solution solved it. Early 11-14, the administration fixed a mind war. The public takes the curse directly to pay, leaving pressure on the lawmakers to vote and arresting the legislation. Now we've been the immediate response to capital problems. Republicans don't know what to do. Call the good one. Maybe Democrats are satisfied their political. Well, they're like Obama's speech has solved the NPR 1150. He didn't leave American jail politicians freeze up there. He's unusual humble. They don't speak about integrity. Solution. Now they say lifting of our would increase export first. You did not read the internal link to be able to solve for the economy. Do not let the 1AR do this. It's a sandbag and cross-light and 20 argument that now immigration reform is a reverse causal. If we do not get past our economy will collapse. They have continued that from the 1 to see immigration reform is necessary. There's a policy 3-6 because of that emerging broken immigration system and pushing American global leadership in jeopardy and mission drives the economy with a good idea of work our country won't be able to transfer lead the market cards. Also experts have been going on right now. Why is Cuba? There's no reason Cuba is a small island will be critical. They say legislative gridlock. However, they did not read the card for this. Also the card that they wouldn't read. Let's talk about Obamacare, which I answered already. Now immigration will pass. GOP support for immigration goes everything. Well, the leadership is on board and rank and file members are converted. That's the Bush evidence. Prefer our evidence that predicted while there is just a snapshot of the status quo and just talked about Obamacare in the 2013 section. Now we'll pass Talent Hire and Ryan. This is 112.73. Ryan encourages Steyer being willing to criticize the party. He could do like one immigration to speak to hire talent and stop the advocacy. Before Ryan has solid the budget would free focus on immigration. Wisconsin has been working on the compromise and now the budget deal has a lot of immigration. This is the cover in 12-13 6 to make a political dynamic both part of the 2 year budget. Hiding the possibility of the immigration pay all groups to wait for appropriate. Now you should look at this context. The lens of the link. Uniqueness will always be situational. However, the link is always in the direction. They have continued coming out of the 2 see that it will drain political capital, which means that the uniqueness to be will not matter. Exo solves Exos can't solve. Obama won't do it. This is the most recent evidence report. There's 8-3 presidential action may be the trial outcome. It is temporary remedy. Obama cannot order a pathway to the executive would also not create more temporary high tech visa category temporary work. There's no other option. Now Obama other presidents can roll back its cost in Virginia. So that I didn't give the executive imagine it's all in its controlling temporary case by case violence on members of Congress has declared that executive structure parole and party extended meeting of Congress has attempted to trouble terrain activity direction and accounting especially that executive use of parole authority and individual institution we not classify allow limited law. Now the PC arguments prefer issues specifically unique political capital is uniquely key to immigration reform. Why it might be polarizing in general. Obama push is necessary to get past evidence to politicians that already made up their mind and our unique evidence that says that that's not the case. Now Obama's political capital uniquely key to push a lock up House votes to Shire in 1018. Republican Party approval the right low he where immigration has a window of appeal to a beta of some reason. We can agree so beta will not be given. Beta will not be about a root, but it will be a push a real good PC is key. No matter what right 10 25 President Obama give it on the neck and there's no concern that partial federal government should not push the well of good evil either formal comprehensive separate party will be considered a political capital compromise actually that's immigration for President Obama's clearly not committed. Now economic decline does cost more. That was on the overview. They have considered that immigration will collapse the economy, which means that not only a quick total collapse, which is their evidence does not take account to persistent economic slowdown causes war. This is the newest data, James 7.3. The orders of great war included how financial globalization can create the equivalent national trade, increasing the vulnerability of international response to current financial credit, similar dynamic after natural to higher amount of power. How to use a financial cloud in the after 2008 financial institution period dangerous weapons of mass destruction, the global geopolitical intruding behavior, financial instrument of power that's the power. A century later, you can mark the card that also returns to the biodiversity impact because if we don't have a growth, if we don't have growth, then species will not be protected. We don't have any interest in all that. Also, the economy is not vulnerable. The 2008 recession has taken out the last line of defense. The Federal Reserve is still backless. Now, the forward contradiction are if we win the conditional is good, then it's alright to contradict into one and see current position. You cannot go for contradiction position into another. Impact is inevitable. No longer we were not a performing contradiction. The ethnic now is key to ideological flexibility because we will all either be concave barriers or policy barrier and will not be able able to run that first strategy and want to see.
Okay, we had 5:55, is that right?
Yeah.
Alright, sorry. Okay, sounds like a plan. Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, start prep, 132. So, just gonna flash it. This is
Is it alright if I merge my cards with his?
Go for it.
Like that.
What's happening?
Where's the doc?
Really? Oh, it's in the trashes folder. My computer was just like that. Yeah, it's in dot trashes. Alright. Grayson, are you gonna bring me up your computer after, when I get to the counterplan then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so the order is gonna be transition,
Alright.
then no war, then or the ag flow, then the counterplan, and then CIR.
We'll take another second, Brett.
Alright. Okay. 2 seconds each for 1/3.
Case order again?
Transition, no war, then ag.
Advanced count with CR.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay. Everybody good?
Good.
No reforms found with Morales evidence indicates that more of the reforms that are happening are contradictory. The current evidence fails to assume the contradictory nature. It says some things are happening, but those some things are contradictory, but a lot of other things that are going the other way doesn't lead to instability in the first place. Conceded to is the argument that there would be no flood in capital means that there is no instability because the reform isn't that rapid in the first place, and the gradual reforms aren't able to solve in the first place. The CSG evidence indicates that it still allows for Castros to keep power and be able to adjust to the gradual reforms means that no change happens means it's try or die for rapid reforms in the first place. Also, they won't scapegoat they wouldn't be able to scapegoat because they wouldn't be able to maintain power in the first place. No, yes, extinction. The cast of all evidence indicates zoonotic disease don't need a host. They can go back into their environment. It's unique to zoonotic disease. Their evidence doesn't imply that. And yes, they mutates quickly. Or whatever evidence indicates that the uniqueness on our side because globalization makes unique mutation inevitable. Cures aren't able to solve because we won't be able to develop the cures fast enough because the mutations are too quick. Go on to no war. Yes, no escalation. The raw evidence indicates that there's an interconnectedness. Things like deterrence as well as the global alliances are able to lead to cooperation instead of war in the first place. It means that even a conflict or tension occurs, it'll be mitigated by cooperation and global alliances. Also, not going for the roadblock evidence, but institutions are able to solve because they are able to serve as a global forum for cooperation in the first place. Go on to agriculture. Water vapor isn't crucial. Their evidence doesn't say anything in the first place. It just says that it doesn't make a causal link between carbon and water vapor, but only the acids able to solve organic agriculture, between trees and nitrogen in soil, allows carbon sequestration in plants and soil. Let's see a lot of evidence. Also, the Proterra evidence goes to see too much CO2 is worse than it's unique to CO2, and it's not about temperature. It indicates that when the natural balance CO2 is changed for current levels, plants become overwhelmed and can't absorb nitrogen. Means they can't grow in the first place. That goes conceded means they aren't able to go for this in the first place. They say warming. We don't take into account warming, but yes, our evidence is about CO2. The NRG evidence indicates that higher CO2 levels means that water evaporates quickly and leads to less absorption and less growth. Also, warming entails more than CO2. Other effects that overwhelm CO2 absorption in the first place means that even if we win a 1% solvency risk of the counterplan doesn't solve, that means you vote negative, vote affirmative. Also, the LU evidence all causes of food security. The LU evidence indicates it's mainly a question about how much rainfall the plants get, and it means that if there's a drought, they can't access the impact droughts are inevitable means they aren't able to solve advantage. Also, the feedbacks don't check this argument because our evidence indicates that feedbacks aren't net negative. That's the green evidence with the one and see we prefer scientific consensus on our side. Going to the counterplan. Countries that model U.S. or Western countries means they aren't able to solve it. Second, the U.S. data doesn't solve because countries in hotspots like Africa don't have the medical infrastructure to stop it. That's Cooper evidence. Only the Cuban model solves because it's key to get the medical infrastructure in the first place. Murphy evidence indicates that even in monitoring, they would have to go in to stop the disease. It means there's only no one to intervene in the first place. Also, counterplan called they can't solve globally. That's Weber et al. 7. Globalization is turning the world into enormous specialties infectious diseases. Harrison, we read this in 1AC.
This is a different cover.
Okay. Solution only possible now. And poor countries are the best places to reach United States. Only saving countries that feel threatened by American power. The establishing warning the warning system require intervention to the places that want the most likely source of the pandemics in countries that won't let agencies in on those long. Is the U.S. remains the lone superpower. We're not likely to get any help. And the Anderson evidence about protectionism is a hypothetical scenario where U.S. backlash versus people with economic sanctions. Not the Cornell evidence indicates that when we could change our model for economic ecological diplomacy, be able to make it effective in the first place. There are evidence to assume this, and evidence doesn't say that economic backlash is normal means. It isn't. Also, no impact of protectionism of countries won't go to war. Trade is able to check this. Also, they aren't able to solve the environment. Though robotic evidence indicates that they would increase the ocean temperature by putting these bubbles on the ocean in the first place. Means they are unable to reflect as well in the first place. And yes, they cause an environmental impact. They would mess up with the biodiversity in the environment. That's there's an impact to that. That is the 1C Roberts evidence. Go on to politics. Yeah, we wouldn't stop disease funding. We can still prioritize the important issues. Also, it doesn't towards transition. The Cuba can isolate itself from the global economy. Also, no rollback is checked by durable fiat. The KM card is stupid. It's about relations, not transition. Go onto the uniqueness debate. Unique is overwhelmed. The health and talent evidence indicates that talent Ryan are on board. That solves. Also, the budget deal should have created the environment cooperation. That should adequately solve. Go on to the PC key debate. No Obama involvement leads intense polarization overcomes any ideological preferences. That's the Altman and Lee evidence. Statistical data supports that Lee's evidence has been historically true. Also, 4,000 empirical examples go off. It's Klein 12. There are two some competition parties, political interest, passing can't win the hard lose. Though both the comments are known to those 4,000 votes. The Democrats and Republicans also the president involved in the votes followed along party lines. And most of the time, the president took his hand, and no rose more than half.
You finished that card, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have 455, right?
Yep.
Alright, thank you.
Which card did you find? I finished.
He's like, you can go bunch of
It's just a talented.
Did you read this? Yes, no, I got that. Right. You ready for an order? Politics. Counter plan, no war, warming transition.
Politics, counterplan, no war transition.
No war, warming transition. Can't drop anything.
I tried to trick you. Okay, so politics transition.
Just give me 1 second to get my speech set up. You ready? That's the Twitch computer right here so I can get it immediately. There, you ready? Okay. This said, I was in terms of case. First rating it says that economic decline in itself is impacted, causing massive amount of suffering and poverty throughout the country. So even if they win, then no war debate that economic decline is independently bad. Something you should vote negative for in the first place. Now the economic collapse outweighs in terms of case. It collapses multilateralism, which is a friendly issue for all the global institutions, alliances, and argument. Because they have dropped the there's more evidence saying that global institutions turn inward and countries are less likely to cooperate in the world of economic decline because they are only interested within themselves. The reason why we just assume that no war impacts in the first place. It causes terrorism, another independent impact themselves. And terrorism is bad because it leads to the deaths of people and also leads to retaliation in the worst case would cause a nuclear war. Now it also turns into transition argument. This card is not only about relations, and even if it's about relations are critical making a transition successful because it's the only way that Cuba's healthcare model can be exported. Because if the U.S. and Cuba does not have good relations, that means that the U.S. is not going to do anything to try and export the Cuban model, let alone other countries. Also, relations are key to remittances and increase trade flows between the two countries, which are something that makes the transition more effective. Also, it turns their biodiversity argument because we will put all the resources into the economy and lift industrial regulations. If we need to grow more in the world of decline, which causes more pollution, and also turns the organic argument because industrial agriculture is cost competitive right now. If the cost-based YC talks about 1C, that's going to die if we're in the world of economic decline. Industrial agriculture is uniquely cheap right now. The inertia based on economic decline is going to cause more of that to happen. And also, it turns disease because healthcare will be the last priority of any single country if there's an economic decline. They have conceded the internal link, which would be another framing issue. If you don't pass CIR, the economy will decline. Write your ballot framing that the economic decline is 100%. Now it's only a question about whether the plan links. The fiat, the key says that it doesn't stop disease funding without a warning in the way. Don't let the 2A expand this because the 2A is the last chance for the negative offense. Do you feel like the 2A do extrapolations that causes a transition here where the app will always win the debate? So you can only evaluate 2A arguments if you trace it back to the 1A. Uniqueness debate. The immigration reform will pass right now. He didn't have many warrants in the 1A, nor any new evidence. House leadership and everyone in general is getting on board with immigration. Bannon and other Republicans are pushing. That's bullshit evidence. The 1A spent 7 seconds without any warrants and extended their own evidence. The recent budget negotiations on the warrant they have dropped in the talent have given Obama the political capital necessary to push immigration reform. Now, you cannot go for uniqueness overwhelms the link if there's no link defense. Obama can't legislate great like isolating the 2AC means that uniqueness is on the brink right now. Lifting border will cause bloody murder that will cause because the anti-Cuba lobby shoots at any mention of normalized trade relations. It's a little bit more than poll cap. It's more about time and influence and about the political football that is called the Cuban embargo. The reason why he hasn't passed in the past 55 years. They have dropped the framing issue of the poll cap debate that it is about the link. Even if not only does it drain massive amounts of political capital, it breaks the bipartisan negotiation going on for CIR within the Capitol, which is the reason why their PC offense doesn't make sense, except their PC offense doesn't make sense regardless, because they have dropped the argument about this is about issue specific reunions. Really, Lee 2009, with Obama's starting term, this evidence is not contextual to immigration reform at all. We have specific evidence like the same evidence says Obama pushes necessary to get Bannon on board, which is one day job. The Robital evidence says that he's going to keep doing CIR for anything. The argument they're arguing is about partisan stakes and about party lines. They said party lines are irrelevant because CIR is a party issue. Now, about the elections, it is written for both Republicans and Obama because the Republicans cannot keep looking like they're giving the Hispanics the middle finger. A reason why they're more likely to go in the bottom and finally cooperate, especially after the results of the budget deal and of the government shutdown and the crisis. That's going to make them more likely to pass it. The advanced capital, I'm not going to go for no residual office. The decent condition items, I don't need to consider permutation. The no war debate, the interdependence arguments, and the global alliance are all turned by economy because all of those things die and the world will have multilateralism from an economic climate to status quo. The global forum arguments are useless regardless because leaders are zeros within the status quo. They are more interested in presenting themselves. Diversity of war is an impact that will turn all these no war arguments because countries are going to go to war to appease their own population. Their own populations come before any sort of global security because they need to be elected to their political position. The reason why they're more likely to do this, the warming advantage. You did not extend the total impact of warming in the 1AR. Do not let the 2AR do this. They have also dropped the Willis evidence saying that the impact of warming is empirically not because of biodiversity levels in the past. Even if there was 1,200 ppm, 3 times more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere right now in the past, that has not led to mass extinction. In fact, increased biodiversity. Now the water vapor turn after I'm going to go for this as offense, but at worst it's defense because they have once again conceded a correlation that increasing water vapor, increasing CO2, and taking CO2 out of the atmosphere with increased water vapor levels in the upper stratosphere. Water vapor is the bigger greenhouse gas. The framing issue they have conceded. The Andrews evidence supports this correlation. Doesn't study on this argument. They don't have something to counter that, which is a photo should be a framing issue for this debate. Reason why they don't get a warming impact in the first place. Finally, the transition debate. The transition debate has which just a couple of shadow extensions in one area. He didn't answer the specific warrants of the 2AC. The Picon evidence says that they're towards it right now. There's more to businesses and small businesses. Even if those businesses are slow to contradict, they did not make a time frame distinction for when the reform is necessary, which is a reason why, as long as it eventually happens, like in 2018 when Diaz-Canel would be able to normalize relations with the U.S., that should be sufficient. So they have dropped the argument that Cuba cannot control its own, the Castro cannot control its own transition. Readers know why even if you lift the embargo, that's not going to cause it to finally diseases. Diseases do not cause extinction. The positive evidence simply says that the vaccines are extremely slow, and at worst, it's either too fast or too slow because diseases cannot just survive in the atmosphere. You need a hope to do it. And also, they have dropped the argument that governments at the very last end will try and stop this argument to try to stop diseases because they have a self-preservation interest.
Okay, wave 3. Starting.
Scott sends side locks around 5. You could hit University of St. Paul Central. CPS was on. Yeah.
They do require a statute, but they don't require SLs.
Okay.
Transition, ag, politics, no war.
Diseases cause extinction magnitude to frame your impact calculus because you can come back from an external scenario that we have defense to, but there is no credible defense to diseases coming out of the 2NR. The Posner evidence that they cite is overly theoretical, and from 2005 the concept of all evidence indicates that pathogens start in the environment and they don't require a host. That answers the nuance in the Posner evidence that says they burn out too quickly because those are the ones that require a host. Zoonotic diseases are different and they mutate past evolving diseases. Additionally, probability should also frame your impact calculus because there is a probable scenario that diseases occur. H1N1 and other international events prove that globalization is going to increase in disease, and diseases are become inevitable. It is try or die for diseases because there are a lot of risks in the world. You should vote for the team that best addresses the risk. We access the faster internally to escalation because we have defense economic decline. It's in isolated instances, but diseases come across the globe. Diseases are the best internally. Why economic decline happens because it reduces the population capacity and the capacity to do work, which means we access inroads to their hotspots argument. Diseases are hotspots, so that's the way that they frame their impact at the top of the 2NR. The transition advantage proper reforms are contradictory. Chris's analysis of the 1AR was really good. There aren't attacking every single industry in the Cuban economy. There is instability within the regions right now. The Kona evidence isn't as good as our evidence. For default to good evidence because it rewards good research quality. Yes, we did make a time frame distinction. The time frame distinction is normal trade relations. It isn't an immediate process, which was what their evidence assumes. Additionally, the link is non-unique because of 08 travel restrictions. Diaz-Canel is irrelevant because he is an ineffective political leader and Castro control doesn't matter. It's just a question of whether we affect the Cuban healthcare industry, which we obviously do because the Oman evidence says we foster a market-based transition. The affirmative doesn't eliminate that transition. We did the transition because of the way that we foster economic liberalization and democratic stability is sufficient with the way that we explain the advantages. We explain the advantage in the 1AR. Additionally, the Bacone evidence doesn't indict those specific things. Agriculture advantage, not going for warming. There's no uniqueness to these terms case arguments. It doesn't cause extinction. All their other arguments prove why globalization is happening now, which is uniqueness. For our trier claims, the political capital debate, you have messed this up. Political capital debate internally should frame your analysis of the dissent. If we win no internally, the DA is 0% risk. It isn't logical to vote for a dissent that Obama isn't key to. The Allman and Miller evidence is the best. Please see card. The GBS debate team is cut in 3 years. Indicates the more Obama talks about the issue, the more people are like to polarize. They like to polarize Obama because they see him gaining political polarization. It makes the hell no caucus show to Republicans backlash against Obama because they see it in their best interest. They are going to up to midterm elections. Why would you agree with an Obama priority when the Tea Party voted you in on a legislative priority that you should backlash against Obama? The internal link chain that they have articulated in the 2NR like makes virtually no sense. Reward good evidence. Our evidence is in the context of CIRQ accuses us of not reading internal link evidence in the context of CIR. Ours is better than yours. It makes more claims about CIR. The bottom of the evidence in the CIR debate indicates that he makes the hell no caucus shudder and he makes other people backlash against his legislative priorities because they don't like to see him gaining political footholds. Also, the Lee evidence is just an indite, a prodate of this warrant, indicating that every time Obama gets on board with a specific issue, there is a 2/3 chance that people backlash against that issue because of party politics and party polarization. Their internal link chain doesn't indicate party polarization. People switch votes despite presidential influence. There are alternative causalities to their internal link that RPC evidence indicts that proves that dissent should be a 0% risk. Additionally, the Klein evidence indicates that there are zero-sum conflicts. One win causes other parties gains, and 5,000 votes prove this. Additionally, our political capital debate, our debate evidence requires consensus, proves how you should frame the debate. Additionally, the Shire evidence is terrible. It indicates there was a window to appeal to Boner that isn't responsible to our arguments about Boehner polarization about Republicans, while as you feign cooperation and impose Obama because they want to discredit the Democratic Party and ideology. The only thing that answers is the Shire evidence. There's a link that there's a reason he could never be swayed. There is no analysis for this. Prefer our warranted evidence. It isn't conclusive. Bill Shire just hopes cooperation is possible. And the rush about evidence just says Obama hasn't given up, and Obama will have to use and compromise. Our argument calls into question his ability to compromise in the first place. Their evidence isn't as good as ours here on the question of viability and the compromise. They say that there are House votes and other things are getting on board now. Well, obviously that proves that Obama isn't critical because negotiations will solve in the future. Obama isn't critical of those. You should feel comfortable on zero risk. Allowing yourself to vote on an internal link that is such a low probability makes policymaking useless because statistical background noise becomes something you could vote on. Prefer probability as an impact framing. The Hispanic scoring goes affirmative. The GOP wants to stop giving Hispanics the middle finger. That's the reason why political capital isn't key because ideology outweighs the GOP and will always up and up approving CIR. The way you should vote affirmative is call for the Saltman and Miller evidence or reward good research because we've just proved this internal link is ludicrous. Then call for the Lee evidence. That's a statistical correlation argument. Then call for the Klein evidence, which is the consensus argument. These three arguments should defeat their internal link because it's not a logical opportunity cost. The dissent doesn't turn the case. We will obviously have
have economic decline. Additionally, the turns case arguments don't make sense if they don't have an internal link to the disad because the disad never actualizes, doesn't cause a rollback because durable fiat solves the no work intention. The analysis that Chris did at the bottom of the flow is really good. It indicates that institution global military alliances prove that there's no escalation, and there's no escalation to hotspots, which is the way they escalate. They explain the internal link in the two NR countries who don't want to backlash against each other, and the risks of going to war are too high. If there is a marginal risk of the politics disad and a large risk of the disease internal link, it doesn't make sense to vote for an internal link chain that isn't causal.